First, let me just get an introduction from all of you, your title, where you're from, what you're doing right now, and what book you have today. Is everyone good with that? Cool beans. All right, we'll start with you, Lauren.
Okay. My name is Lauren Tisdale, and I am currently working at Dow Chemical, which is in Leeds Island, Louisiana. I am the receptionist administrative assistant type person. I released a book November of 2013 called Circle of Secrets. It's about family secrets and has a little bit of romance, a lot of twists and turns, and just a whole bunch of drama. And according to my editor, lots of tears. So that's basically it.
And now Miss Simon.
I'm Margaret Simon. I teach gifted in Iberia Parish, grades 1 through 6. And I have a young reader's novel, Lesson, that was published in April of 2012. And I also have a poetry book that I published last year in October of 2013 called Illuminate. And that is a book of poems to my father's art about Christmas. They're Christmas cards that he drew using pointillism, and I wrote poems to those.
And now Miss Judice.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Judice, and I'm the Gifted and Talented Coordinator in Iberia Parish by day. By night, I'm writing, and early morning writing. I have a young adult fantasy series called Saga of the Seti, but I also have Urban Fantasy Paranormal 2 series coming out under my pseudonym Juliet Cross, and those will be coming out with Kensington Publishing and Sam Hain Publishing in 2015.
Miss Others.
I'm Ann Simon. I'm a retired district judge. And while I was a district judge in Iberia, St. Martin, and Fort Mary parishes by day, I was scribbling stories by night. And after I officially retired, joined a writing group with Stephanie Judice and my daughter-in-law Margaret Simon, who were among the few who had the courage to tell me, hey, that's not good, that's okay, this would be better. And they really taught me how to put it together. And now I have Blood in the Cane Field, the first of 3 books that I'm doing based on cases that I handled. Names changed, locations moved around so that no one can find who calls to check back with me on it. But it's all things that actually happened here in these 3 parishes.
Nice. Okay. We'll come back to that. Miss Veronica.
Okay, I am Veronica Brown Dubrock because I recently got married. But I write under Veronica Brown because the came out before I got married. I currently live in Baton Rouge and I work and teach there, but I grew up in Jeanerette. But I went to school in Franklin in St. Mary Village. And then I've always wanted to be a writer. When I was 6, I told my mom I wanted to be a writer, and she was trying to teach me how to write yet. I have started a sequel. I have 1 page, which I'm excited about. And that's about it. I think that's.
Okay. Miss Joyce.
Yes, I'm Joyce Case, and I'm a transplanted Texan. I married a Louisiana man that brought me over here, which I'm delighted that he did. I'm from a newspaper family. I started writing a teen column for my family's newspaper when I was in the 9th grade, and I wrote ferociously for the newspaper until I got married and moved to California. And didn't write for a long while and became a flight attendant and settled over here and just felt constantly that I needed to write about the adventures of my family starting in 1928 and their struggles. They met, they fell in love. The main character is Wynn Richard. It is a series. Fell in love with a woman of faith and he had a past to hide that he did not want her to find out. There are 2 books. The first one was published in June of this year, 14. The other one just came out. The model On my cover is my daughter, Belinda, and I'm just continually writing. I thought at first it was going to be 3 in the series, but who knows? And the problem with a series, a reader reads one, they want to know, when's the next one coming out? And so, I don't know, my characters are just taking me along for a ride. The facts are basically true. I changed it around because I didn't want to put words in my parents' mouth or my brother's mouth, but I just made up new characters and loosely based on the situations in their life, publishing a newspaper.
So, new question. What is the inspiration for your story?
Oh my. When I was in middle school, my mother had an idea for a screenplay, and I typed fast, so I was her typist. And that was our bonding moment where, I'd type for her, she'd tell me the story, and that was her project. Then it got pushed aside, she got sicker, she eventually passed away. I went to finish her story for her, in memory of her, but I found I'd thrown it away, which was bad. But I remember most of the parts in it, and then I just took this out, added this, changed this around, added another plot twist, bada bing, bada boom. A new story was born with some of her seeds, and I just basically watered the flower, and that's what happened with the story. So that's where I got my inspiration for this. It's a contemporary romance. It's basically about family secrets and discovering yourself and discovering things aren't always what they seem. And without telling too much, it's about two different women, and each chapter is about each woman, and eventually their stories will intertwine.
Okay, we can move on to Miss Simon.
Okay. You want the inspiration for Blessing?
The inspiration for Blessing.
Okay. When I was, I'm a teacher, and I have taught writing for many years, and I was teaching in a writing camp, and there was a child in my writing camp named Blessing. And I said, where did you get the name Blessing? And she said, well, my mother got it from the Bible because I'm a blessing. And she changed the spelling just to make it interesting, which I just tucked that away. Thought that was adorable. And when I went to a fiction writing workshop with Sharon Judice, I started the first chapter pretty much with my travels to that workshop, because I traveled along Highway 31 from New Iberia, and the workshop was in Arnoldville. And so just the drive was inspiring to me. And so some of the scenes started there with that drive. And then, I don't know, it developed from there. It took a long time to write. I just kept doing it little bits at a time. And she just kind of became a daughter to me, I guess. Blessing Judy. She is a character that's gotten into my soul and stayed there, and she's still there. I know people are bugging me for the second one, and it's coming. It's not to fruition yet, but it is. So that was the inspiration for the story. There are little bits and pieces of my childhood and other stories that I've heard, but pretty much, as a lot of writers will say, that the character becomes herself, and she told me what story needed to be told. So Blessing is a biracial child. She, in the beginning of the story, is living with her mother and her grandfather, and they are both white, and she discovers through the story that her father was black. And so she eventually meets him, and there are some sad things that happen to her along the way. But basically, it's a coming of age, discovering who you are.
Okay. Well, for the young adult series Saga of the Seti, I guess I could say I've always been an escapist. And I love to read paranormal, fantasy, anything in that genre just really draws me in. So, of course, that's kind of what I wanted to write. And when I wrote the SETI series, I was teaching high school and around a lot of snarky teenagers. Mm-hmm. And they were funny. They were hilarious. So I kind of pulled from their personalities and decided to write in that genre in the young adult area. I would also say that probably the landscape of South Louisiana inspired me because a lot of the paranormal aspects come from, this hurricane that's bringing these, creatures to the earth, and then it has a lot of that misty, moss-laden Louisiana atmosphere. It becomes, a huge part of the setting. So I would probably say that's kind of what inspired me there. I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm writing as Juliet Cross. And Soulfire is the first one out. And it's a little bizarre. It's kind of it's a Romeo and Juliet retelling, but in a world with half-dragon men and humans living alongside each other. So the inspiration actually came because I just finished a Demon Hunter novel set in New Orleans, and it was contemporary and modern and present day. And I wanted something that was completely my own, a world that did not exist except in my head. So I've always been fascinated with dragons, so I Googled dragon pictures and was looking through this artwork, and one of them just really struck me. It was a beautiful black-haired woman with dragon wings standing next to a dragon, and I just couldn't stop looking at it. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if there was a race of half-dragon people, but they lived alongside humans, and how would they interact? And I thought, well, that would be great for like star-crossed lovers idea, because I write romance. And that's when I thought of like the sort of family feud between the half-dragon people, which I called Morgans, and the humans, and that's where it kind of went from there. So yeah, it's everything I write is pretty much in that fantasy realm, paranormal realm, whether it's present day or my own crazy world in my head. So.
And that crazy world in her head is astounding. She can create an entire universe of people and keep them all straight. And it's amazing to read this world that she has created. Just
thank you.
Oh. Your turn.
Well, as I said, mine come from cases that I have had and seen. The case that inspired the story here is a young black boy. I say he's a black boy. Everyone else thinks he's a black boy, but he was raised being told that he was white and never had any sense of pride in what he was. And his mother never told him of his parentage. And until she is in the courtroom and finally does so. And I was very moved and upset about her and about that situation. So I go back and tell his story. And he is charged, he is just barely over 18 and charged with capital murder because 2 people die on the incident that he's charged with. So the issue of capital punishment also runs through the story. The protagonist is the defense lawyer who successfully defends him, not completely successfully, but he certainly saves him from what might have happened, and also convinces his mother and the man who is his stepfather to embrace what he really is. So it has those themes throughout.
I love that. We're going to talk about both of the Simon twins.
She didn't mention the romantic.
Oh, yeah, and all while we're in our little writing group, Margaret is saying, romance, please, romance. And so the protagonist does indeed fall in love in the course of the story, and I think Margaret was satisfied when it was over.
What is the name of the book?
Blood in the Cane Field, because that's where the bodies were discovered, in the cane field in St. Mary Parish. And the cover, by the way, is a painting of done by my friend Nan Landry.
All right, now for you, Miss Veronica.
So my inspiration, of course, was a lot of things. I've always been obsessed with magic and sorcery and Merlin and all of that. And I convinced myself when I was little that magic is real, whether people tell me it's not. Like, Santa's real, magic is real, all of those things are real in my world. And so I just always wanted to write a story about sorcery. But the main character is not a sorcerer, but she is what's called a keeper of the powers. Like, she is part of the balance of magic and keeping sorcerers from going corrupt. And of course, they are fighting a corrupt sorcerer. But the main character is named Victoria, which is kind of my alter ego, because people apparently think that Veronica and Victoria are the same name.
They'd like to be.
So I spent half of my childhood being called Victoria, but also Victoria is because she is victorious, or could be Victoria. She's kind of the person that I kind of wanted to be. And then there is another character named Kylan, who is definitely the person that I would love to have actually been in real life. Like, she says what's on her mind, and she's a very good, very, very talented sorceress. And there are friends in here that sort of find their way into the story, and I just started writing and let the characters take their own path. I didn't plan a lot of it, but my inspiration was just life, and the little voices in my head that tell me magic is real.
Oh. And now for you, Miss Joyce.
Oh, yes. Well, definitely my inspiration was my family. I'm just in awe of them and the things that they overcame during the Depression, during World War II, and fights with the Union in their printing shop, and just so many things. It's a lot of humor in between, because I love to laugh, and there was a lot of humor. I love history. I've always wanted to read history. I would never read anything but biographies. As I was growing up, I wanted to know about people, real lives, how they overcame. I love to be inspired and encouraged. And I have always wanted to write, and wanted it to be of something that I could give people to know that there is a way out of troubled times, and just how they can work through and find strength. So that's really my part, to honor my parents and what they went through to achieve what they did, from starting out with nothing. And in the 70s was the largest paid circulation newspaper in Texas. And but all along the way, I saw how my mother's faith just brought them through. And so that's why I based my main character, Hope, on that. And my dad and his problems with having a weakness for alcohol, unwise spending of money, unwise decisions sometimes, and yet they came through all of those, and that's what I wanted to address.
Nice. Thank you.
I don't know. It developed from there. It took a long time to write. I just kept doing it a little bit at a time, and she just kind of became a daughter to me. Blessing is. She is a character that's gotten into my soul and stayed there, and she's still there. I know people are bugging me for the second one, and it's coming, not to fruition yet. So that was the inspiration for the story. There are little bits and pieces of my childhood and other stories that I've heard, and then, but pretty much as a lot of writers will say, the character becomes herself, and she told me what story needed to be told. Lesson is a biracial child. She, in the beginning of the story, is living with her mother and her grandfather, and they are both white. And she discovers through the story that her father was black, and so she eventually meets him, and there are some sad things that happen to her along the way. But basically, it's a coming of age, discovering who you are.
Did the child person know that you wrote about her?
I do not know that. I did call her mother to let her know that I was using her name and to ask permission. And she did know that I was doing that. But she was not. She was in a writing camp, so I really have not kept in touch with her. So I don't know. But her name was an inspiration.
I think she's a student at Niche now. I ran across her name in one of the gifted rosters or something. Her name came across some roster across my desk, so she's in high school now.
Well, I don't know if she knows.
Okay, well, for the young adult series, Saga of the SETI, I guess I could say I've always been an escapist, and I love to read paranormal, fantasy, anything in that genre just really draws me in, so of course that's kind of what I wanted to write. And when I wrote the SETI series, I was teaching high school and around a lot of snarky teenagers, and they were funny, they were hilarious, so I kind of pulled from their personalities and decided to write in that genre in the young adult area. I would also say that probably the landscape of South Louisiana inspired me because a lot of the paranormal aspects come from, this hurricane that's bringing these, creatures to the earth, and then it has a lot of that misty, moss-laden Louisiana atmosphere becomes, a huge part of the setting. So I would probably say that's kind of what inspired me there. I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm writing as Juliet Cross. And Soulfire is the first one out. And it's a little bizarre. It's kind of it's a Romeo and Juliet retelling, but in a world with half-dragon men and humans living alongside each other. So the inspiration actually came because I just finished a Demon Hunter novel set in New Orleans, and it was contemporary and modern and present day, and I wanted something that was completely my own, a world that did not exist except in my head. So I've always been fascinated with dragons, so I Googled dragon pictures and was looking through this artwork, and one of them just really struck me. It was a beautiful black-haired woman with dragon wings standing next to a dragon, and I just couldn't stop looking at it, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if there was a race of half-dragon people, but they lived alongside humans, and how would they interact? And I thought, well, that would be great for like a star-crossed lovers idea, because I write romance, and that's when I thought of like the sort of family feud between the half-dragon people, which I call Morgans, and the humans, and that's where it kind of went from there. So, yeah, it's everything I write is pretty much in that fantasy realm, paranormal realm, whether it's present day or my own crazy world in my head. So.
And that crazy world in her head is astounding. She can create an entire universe of people and keep them all straight. It's amazing to read this world that she has created.
Thank you, Anne. You blush. So your turn.
Well, as I said, mine come from cases that I have had and seen. The case that inspired the story here is a young black boy. I say he's a black boy. Everyone else thinks he's a black boy, but he was raised being told that he was white and never had any sense of pride in what he was. And his mother never told him
of his parentage. And until she is in the courtroom and finally does so. And I was very moved and upset about her and about that situation. So I go back and tell his story. And he is charged, he is just barely over 18 and charged with capital murder because 2 people die on the incident that he's charged with. So the issue of capital punishment also runs through the story. The protagonist is the defense lawyer who successfully defends him, not completely successfully, but he certainly saves him from what might have happened, and also convinces his mother and the man who is his stepfather to embrace what he really is. So it has those themes throughout.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about both of the Simon twins.
Should have mentioned the romantic.
There's a romantic
and all while we're in our little writing group, Margaret is saying, romance please, romance please, romance please. And so the protagonist does indeed fall in love in the course of the story, and I think Margaret was satisfied when it was over.
What is the name?
Blood in the cane field, because that's where the bodies were discovered, in the cane field in St. Mary Parish. And the cover, by the way, a painting done by my friend Nan Landry. She did a lovely job.
All right, now for you, Miss Veronica.
So my inspiration is a lot of things. I've always been obsessed with magic and sorcery, and I convinced myself when I was little that magic is real, whether people tell me it's not. Santa's real, magic is real, all of those things are real in my world. And so I just always wanted to write a story about sorcery. But the main character is not a sorcerer, but she is what's called a keeper of the powers. Like she is part of the balance of magic and keeping sorcerers from going corrupt. And of course they are fighting a corrupt sorcerer. The main character is named Victoria, which is kind of my alter ego, because people apparently think that Veronica and Victoria are the same name. But also Victoria, because she's Victoria, so, she's kind of the person that I kind of wanted to be. And then there is another character named Kylan who is definitely the person that I would love to have actually been in real life. Like she says what's on her mind, and she's a very good, very, very talented sorcerer. And there are friends in here that sort of find their way into the story. And, I started writing and let the characters take their own path. But my inspiration is life, and the little voices in my head that tell me magic is real.
Oh, enough of you, kid.
Oh, yeah, definitely my inspiration is my family. I'm just in awe of them and the things that they overcame during the Depression, during World War II, and fights with the Union in the printing shop, and just so many things. It's a lot of humor in between, because I love to laugh, and there was a lot of humor. I love history. I've always wanted to read history. I would never read anything but biographies as I was growing up. I wanted to know about people, real lives, how they overcame. I love to be inspired and encouraged. And I have always wanted to write and wanted it to be something that I could give people to know that there is a way out of troubled times, and just how they can work through and find strength. So that's really my part, to honor my parents and what they went through to achieve what they did. from starting out with nothing. And in the 70s was the largest place circulation newspaper in Texas. And but all along the way, I saw how my mother's face just walking through. And so that's why I based my main character, Hope, on that. And my dad and his problems with having a weakness for alcohol, unwise spending of money, unwise decisions sometimes, and yet they came through all of those, and that's what I wanted to address.
So, how long did it take me to write my book? I started November 1st, 2012, and I was introduced to a thing called NaNo, which is National Novel Writing Month. And a lot of people don't really understand it or, like it. But I didn't know what it was at first, and it's basically a challenge to anyone who's writing to write 50,000 words in 30 days. And I'm a procrastinator, like really bad. So I figured, okay, I'll try this out. And, so I started writing, and it was like a movie in my head. I wrote chapter 1 as chapter 1 and just progressed from there. It just continuously played in my head. And so I wrote what I saw. I wrote what I felt. I used all my senses, and that's basically how it came about. So it took me 30 days to get to 65,000, and then after that, it was the holidays, so I took a break. I hit a roadblock. I was like, okay, I got to 50,000 words, now what? The story is not done. There's no ending. It's just kind of hanging on the cliff. I didn't know where to go from there. I had all these puzzle pieces on the table. My characters were screaming at me, and I didn't know what to do and how to give them the happy ending that they so needed. They deserved it. So I got with a friend and I kind of brainstormed, and I was like, this is the possibilities. I don't even know how to put that all together to make one ending, because I could have went like 5 different ways. And she helped me, with some insight, and was like, let's talk about it. Talk to me about it. And with that brainstorm session, I was like, aha, eureka, I got it. And I had so much of a good support system from all my family saying that I could do it, that I was, my mom was proud of me. Keep going, it's not over yet, just finish the book. And then I finished, and that's whenever I was like, I actually did it. I felt better. I felt like the story had been told. My process was basically just seeing it in my head. It's like a movie. It's playing out. I have to write down what I see and write down what they're saying, write down what they're wearing, write down what they're doing. As far as their facial expressions, so that the reader, as they're reading it, can feel it, see it, hear it, just like it's a movie. So that's my process.
Excellent.
A lot of similarities with Lauren, because I felt like when I went to the workshop and started writing, it was just, a real floodgate opened up, and I was living the movie every day. Waking up, I couldn't wait to go sit down and write it out. But then the roadblock came, and for me, the roadblock was that Blessin found out about her father, but he was already dead. And so when he wasn't alive, and so so he was already in. Anyway, when I talked to a friend about it, she said, "Well, you can't kill him yet." And I guess it was like a freeing thing, because I thought, well, wait a minute, I have control over this? Yes, you have control over it. You can. So I had to go rewrite the scene where he was dead, so that he was just not present. And we didn't know where he was. And then eventually he came, and he appeared, and she got to know him, and so she did eventually meet her father. And so that was a roadblock for me. But it was also at the same time, it was a kind of exciting discovery that you are an author. You are writing it. You can make decisions, and you can change things. And while I say that Blessin told me her story, at the same time, I had a lot to do with that. And so I think right now I'm at a roadblock with her second story, more so for procrastination, because I don't open the file. I think if you opened the file, that would help. But I think the roadblock for me right now is that I know where I want it to go, and there's that fear factor of actually having it go there. So, but I think writing is, one of my favorite authors is Kate DiCamillo, and she's the winner of the Newbery Award multiple times, but also won it this year in 2014. And she faces that fear factor every day, and she just, it feels good to know that I'm not alone in that. Every author feels that fear factor, and every author worries about putting themselves out there. And I think that's something that we all have to deal with, and it helps to have friends in the same place and support in that.
Okay, writing process. When I first wrote Rising, the first one I published, when the idea sort of came to me, I wrote at my leisure. You know, I did have a full-time job and 4 kids at home, so I wrote when I could, I guess you could say, when I could steal like a few minutes at lunchtime or whatever. And so it took probably 7 to 9 months. I didn't really keep track, but it took me, you know, a good length of time to write the book. Resistance came a little faster because I was eager to get there. And then something changed for me, and specifically for Juliet Cross, who I write under. I got an agent 2 Augusts ago. And so she started pitching Forged in Fire for me out there, and it took about 7 months, but and within that time frame I'd written 3 novellas. I wrote 1 in each month. They just kind of poured out of me. So I guess I'm thinking about the process now. It's very different from when I first started. Last February we sold the Nightwing series, and then the next month we got a call from another publishing house. So within 2 months, I had 6 books under contract. And for the Forged in Fire series, or it's actually called the Vessel Trilogy, I hadn't written book 2 and 3. And they put them out on, so I have deadlines for them. And then, so this was a whole new thing. It went from sort of writing when I could to now it's a business and I'm under contract and I have deadlines to meet. So it took me this summer probably 5 months to write book 2 for the Vessel Trilogy, and that was mainly because I was also editing back and forth with my editor at Kensington, both the Soulfire first novella and the second novella. And so now I feel a lot of pressure, I guess, to get them done faster, but also try to keep the quality of work the same. So I had to kind of have a coming to a Jesus with myself. There was no longer writing when I could. I get up at 4 o'clock every day so that I can have a good hour and a half to 2 hours to write before the family, the kids, wake up and everything. And then when they're doing homework, I'm writing. And then on my lunch break, I'm eating at my desk and I'm writing. So it's constant for me. I still love it. I'm actually more passionate than I probably have ever been because I feel like I'm finally starting to meet that goal that I've been wanting, which was to sort of, get my stories out there. But as far as where the process was in the beginning, a couple of years ago, and where I am now, I'm in a totally different headspace. I just talked to my editor for Sam Hain, book 3. She said they really want by January, and I have a chapter written. So the fastest thing I've ever written was Waking the Dragon in 3 months, and I have 2.5 months to get this one done. So we're going to see if I can beat my record and still write with quality.
I think my process is the absolute flip side of Stephanie's, because I revise, leave and write something, come back a month later and look at it and write it again another way. It takes me a long time to produce anything. But what I was fascinated by in this writing group that we had was that although I'm writing a crime novel, Stephanie is turning out this fantasy world. Margaret is writing a poetic story about a young girl for a younger audience. I'm writing for adults. Stephanie's writing for younger adults, and Margaret is writing for children, so many of the techniques that I learned, because I didn't know any of them, apply to all three genres. And when you follow some of these rules, like not using the past tense, don't use it and that, use this specific.
The
and
it police.
The it police, we it policed each other, saying, oh, you got too many its there. And repetition, eliminating repeating words. It's amazing that some of these very basic rules apply to all genres of writing. And I had to learn them because I'm not a writer. And that's why my technique is much slower. And I revise.
My writing process is very similar to yours in that I'm very slow at it. I actually started this book while I was a teenager, which is why the main characters are teenagers. And it took me a long time. I went to college and took writing classes and literature classes and didn't have time to actually write for myself because I had to write short stories for class and poetry for class and things that, I was forced to write. And then I graduated from college with an English degree and had to get a job in retail because I hadn't finished writing yet. And so I would write in my spare time and, I would work on the novel whenever I could. And then I decided to become a teacher. And I lost my job at Starbucks 3 months before I started my teaching program. And that's actually when I wrote most of the novel. I was like, okay, I'm unemployed for 3 months. I have to live off my savings. I knew I was going to have a job, so I just sat down and wrote down all my ideas and started writing, and that's when the story really started to take shape. And then the teaching program started, and I had to stop writing again because I had other things I had to do. So it took me a long time to finish it. And then, I mentioned earlier that I'm dyslexic, which is also a major roadblock because, I had to get people to proofread it, like my mom, and she was like, you have a lot of misspelled words, and, spell check doesn't catch all of them because if you misspell certain words, they become other words. So they don't fit in the sentence, but they're still spelled correctly. So and I'm also a very slow reader. I read incredibly slowly. So it takes me a long time to get through. And you actually write faster than I read. And so that was a process as well, to just get through the roadblocks of my own disability. But I enjoyed the process of writing so much that I just kind of let the characters take over, like you said, that they kind of wrote themselves by the end of the story. One of my favorite characters, Kylan, who's in the book, I didn't even know she was going to be in the story, and then she just kind of introduces herself and becomes one of the main characters of the story. And so I enjoyed the process of not knowing. I didn't know how it was going to end until it ended. So that, my writing process is as much a surprise for me, I guess, as it is for my reader. But also in this book, I wanted to explore the art of storytelling. There's like a storyteller in it who, is at a festival and he's telling a story and people are calling back other things to him, and like the very traditional storytelling style. And there's a couple of letters that different characters wrote to other characters. I wanted to explore, being able to fit letter writing into a novel. I sort of, as a teacher, I thought, letter writing is kind of a dying art with email, and so I was really exploring that option as well while I was writing, and I think it worked out well.
As far as my writing, my stories have been in my heart for many, many years, and they didn't really resonate as to, I need to write these down. When I was a flight attendant, I just hand wrote on, notebooks, started just handwriting, just bits and pieces of things that I wanted to remember. And then in the first part of, the middle of the 90s, I started having major back problems and went through 4 intense major back surgeries, and during that recovery time, really the only thing I could do was type out on the computer. Started meshing all my little stories together, and realized, oh man, there's really some books here. And I went to a couple of Christian writers conventions in Colorado Springs, and that is owned by the Jerry Jenkins, who wrote the Left Behind series. And I learned so much from the sessions that I attended there. And then I started going to the life writing classes here, and really became encouraged when I would read my stories, and people would say, yeah, you need to, put this in a book. So having the encouragement and being here on this authors roundtable with all of the authors here, I just feel humbled to even sit at the same table with them. And I just feel very blessed that I'm able to tell the stories of, that were inspired by my family. And so my writing process, now I'm better. My back is much better, so I can actually sit at my desktop. I don't do it every day. There's just days and days that go by that I'm doing other things and I don't do it. But when I do, I get carried away by my characters. They're leading me on, and I just forget how long I've been there. And my husband's, kind of walking in the kitchen like, where's supper? So it's just fascinating to me. I love it.
I do have one more question. Okay. So as a writer myself, I just wanted you guys' opinion, your opinion, y'all's opinion on the idea of, because I think it's fascinating how you write a character and they're nothing like you and they're totally different, and it doesn't stop you from writing them. And isn't that most of the fun? Isn't that? I like that doesn't, you being Caucasian does not keep you from writing about African Americans. I love that, actually, because it's the same principle that lets you write about half-dragon human people.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I find that there is criticism about
I wonder,
writing in, something they don't know. Well, and I've never lived in St. Martin either. So, and Stephanie and I have had lots of conversations about this, because there's this, write what you know kind of. So, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It is, because you really, well, of course, for one thing, how else can you write? How else can you write? Because you really do, if you are writing it, you know it. And I know about children. I know about children who suffer through lots of loss. I know that because I teach them, and I see them every day. So you can't say I don't know them. But I'm writing them from a perspective of trying to be in their, shoes. But like Stephanie said, she doesn't know dragon people.
Right.
She doesn't know people who have supernatural powers and live in fantasy worlds either.
Right. I don't know for sure. I would love to. I mean, people will ask me, they're like, is this based on the real experience? I'm like, but I love writing about them. But,
Well, that one time in college.
It's amazing when you go, if you major in creative writing, I don't know if Professor Bennett is still there. I didn't have to. Okay. I love Professor Bennett. But that was one thing he drilled into us, write what you know. And so all I ever wrote was Southern fiction. And while my mother would love to me have written fried green tomatoes and something like that, it wasn't what my muse wanted to do. And every time I went to write, I would go to some other place that didn't exist in the real world. But having said that, my characters are real. I know these people. They're bits and pieces of people I know. Some of the characters are me. I love writing book 2 for the Soulfire series. It's called Windburn. Because the main character
says whatever she wants, whenever she wants, and she doesn't care what anybody thinks. It is the polar opposite of me, and I've always admired women who could do that. You know, and I've met them. You know, my roommate in college, it's like I channeled her, you know, because she was always so brazen and bold and something I wanted to be. And so I put it in my characters. I do know them. It's just that the world is mine, you know. So I think it's true to a point, but it's also false to pigeonhole yourself and say, well, you're white and you're Southern, so you can only write about Southern white women, and that's all you can do. And I think that's a change, you know. And writing is really is about opening up and exploring all the possibilities and creating your own world in ways that are real, the characters are real.
Is there a gender bias when it in this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
my main character was male in the semi-series.
It's pretty well documented that women for years could only write romance and history.
Well, romance still is the redheaded stepchild.
Right. And even like Agatha Christie, who was writing mysteries well before most women were writing mysteries, like she had to fight to get her stuff published.
Well, and my favorite writer ever, Charlotte Bronte, wrote Under Her Bell, and all her sisters wrote under men's names. That's the only way that we can improve.
Yeah. And in many ways, it's still like that.
It's a lot of, you know, male-male romance and all of that's really building. And so, yeah, there are, but that's also written by a lot of women too. So I'm sure they get it.
You would act.
No one else used that. I got
Done. Check. Well, last question. It's about your marketing. How many of you are marketing yourselves by asking the question why first? Why?
By marketing?
Well, why are you?
Are you writing?
Well, yes. Why this story? Because there's a book called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. You should read it then. And it's like the golden circle principle about how people market and sell themselves the wrong way. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. It's the tagline for it. So it's like, you know, like imagine the golden circle, what, how, where, why. And that's usually how we go. What, how, why. And so you need to go from the in out. And I was just wondering if you had ever thought of that, just, you know, well, why am I doing this? And are you selling why? Like, I'm doing this to finish the story of someone close to me, you know, and then marketing it from that angle. And not just, you know, like selling your personal story, but just in your own, you know, this is why, this is my driving force. Have you ever, like, okay.
Is why I started the finish one of the fourth. But it became so much more than that. And like you had mentioned, there was a realization that was had where you're like, I'm a writer. I'm an author. I am doing this because your dream is only a dream until you make it a reality. And that's what I wanted to do. I was like, you know, I was like, I never thought I wanted to be a writer because it just seemed and all that. But the more that my family and friends pushed me, and fellow friends who also wrote about their things published, and they tell me, you have a gift, you know, nourish it, cherish it, use it, you know, and the why became, I don't want to be a person who's just about the money, because it's not about the money, it's not about the fame. Granted, that's all nice things, but more or less, I want to touch people with heart. I want to make people fall in love with reading. Whenever you're having a bad day, and you're angry and frustrated, I want someone to go home, get my book, curl up, and just escape to my love that, you know, you feel. Like Stephanie, she creates worlds with gratitude. I want to go to her world and chill out there for a little while. And forget that I have bills. Forget that there are people sick and that they can't be helped. Forget that people are dying. Forget, you know, life that we live and just get lost in a world where you can just have fun and just have your beauty. And like I said, fall in love with reading again and touch people.
What she said, what she said plus, you know.
I'll add on to Lauren.
Yeah. What she said plus. I really have discovered this. I don't think it was the why originally, but eventually the discovery has been that connecting to others is extremely important to me. And I think when we do write something that someone else says, oh gosh, I've been there, I've felt that, I've done, when you make a connection, whether it's to a stranger or to someone close to you, that's important. And I think it's becoming more and more important these days that we connect to each other, because I think we're losing connections. So that's why I do it. And I guess that's why I've kind of changed course from writing. I now write on a blog, and I think the reason the blog has become so important to me is because of the connections. And I find myself, like, I wrote a blog post today, and I keep checking my phone to see the comments. And comments feed me, but it's not just about what it gives to me, but it's that we are all in this world together, and we're all experiencing things together. And when we can say we've made a connection, I think that's important, and that's why I do it.
Okay, so I agree with everything everybody said. But I think writing and publishing for me have become two separate things almost. Why I write is the same reason I think everybody up here writes. They can't do anything else. If you're a writer, it's inside you, and you've got to get it out. And I know that I am happiest when I'm writing on a regular basis. And I think that's what Veronica was saying. Like, she has all this angst building up because she's not having that time right now to write. And it does. It's that need, that compelling need, as all artists have. You know, why artists paint, why, musicians sing, why, we feel that need to express that art, and that's on paper. And even though I do write in fantasy worlds and there's all this crazy paranormal stuff going on, my characters are real and their problems are very contemporary. They're overcoming hardships and personal struggles just like anybody else. I just have some stuff going on around, There's people, flinging powers and whatnot, but all of that's very real. So I think why I write is because I really want to share those stories. The publishing part has become more business-ended now. When I first published, I self-published, so I could do it however I wanted. I had full control. I could do it at my leisure. I could, whatever, it was perfectly on my own. But after I self-published and, had some moderate success locally, I realized I just didn't have the time to completely push myself. And I also wanted an editor with a publisher who would really help me hone my work. My writing group has been crucial in helping me, in fine-tuning all the aspects of my writing. But I wanted someone to look at my content and help me grow, because I can't go to creative writing class anymore. I don't have someone who can, I'm in a different place in my life as a mother and a wife and a, full-time worker. So the publishing part now has helped me. Now that I'm with Kensington and Sam Hain, I have two amazing editors, and one of them, she just, because I'm starting a new series called Veil of Stars, and the first book in that one called Waking the Dragon, which is a spin-off of the Half Dragon series. It begins in June, and she wanted a breakdown of where I'm going, so I was able to give her a small picture, and she's like, that's awesome. Read my inline comments, and here's some feedback. And that's what I needed, for that publishing part, was really to push me up to another level. So it was building those relationships. For publishing for me is now to have this relationship with an editor that's going to really bring me to the next level, which is where I want to go. I want to continue to grow. And I think all writers feel that. You want to continue to grow. And so there's that part. And also I need help in the marketing, and I can't do it on my own. So now that, and like you said, you still have to do it on your own. You still need to do social media. You still need to do conference circuits. I hear that's a big deal, things like that. And but also once you get a publisher who can sort of do that other end, it goes back and forth and back and forth.
I'm not originally from here. 60 years I've been living here, but that's still not a native, So I have a slightly different perspective on this whole area, and I am fascinated by it. I love it. I love the work that I've been able to do in all my life, and I want to share that And there's such humor in it that I love to find. There's beautiful things, there are sad things, there are issues that need to be thought about more deeply, like capital punishment and such. And I write to preserve all what I've learned and what I feel about all these things, and to try to give enjoyment at the same time to the people who read books.
Yeah, I mean, I think the why I write is the same as, what Stephanie said, is that, I write because it's who I am. I'm a writer, and that's all I've ever wanted to be since I was little. I mean, my job is a teacher, but who I am is a writer, and that's why I write. But I also, write, part of my dedication in my book is, this book is also dedicated to those people like me who learn in a different way. This book is proof that you can succeed at your dreams too. Because I am dyslexic in visually, auditorially, writing, it's been a struggle. And there were a lot of people along the way who were like, there's no way you'll ever succeed at writing. And I was like, watch me succeed at writing just because you told me I can't. So part of why I write is just to spite people that thought I write out of spite because people told me I couldn't do it. And, I was no, not my mom, but other people did. But for 5 years I taught special education in East Baton Rouge Parish, and I would watch my students just be dejected because they thought they couldn't succeed. They weren't going to be able to do anything in life. And I was like, look, you can do whatever you want to do. Don't let people tell you that you can't. And when the book got published, I was like, this is proof that anybody can follow their dreams. I have a friend who's legally blind who is a fantastic artist. She doesn't see anything in color, but her color art is fantastic because she puts colors together that anyone who can see in color would never do. But it makes things much more interesting. But, I write because I love to write, it's who I am, but also because I want to prove to other people that all of the naysayers are wrong. You can succeed at anything as long as that's if that's who you are, if you are a writer, then write, whether you're dyslexic or not. And so, I wanted to write to prove that to the world.
If I may go back and add my dedication, dedicated to everyone who works in the American system of justice, a flawed system, but the best is yet devised by man.
The best incentive is people that doubt that we can do it. And part of my hope in writing my books and putting it down is to encourage people not to give up their dream. If you have a dream in your heart, there are obstacles, of course, that are going to come along the way, but don't give up. If you really know you have something that is inside you that you need to do, and the first book, Paper Dreams, it's the dream that the main character, Winston Pritchard, had. But, he had so many obstacles coming his way, but he had this drive within him. And the newspaper profession was such an important thing to me. He felt that a newspaper is such a vital part of the community, especially, back before we had all of the media that we have now. The newspaper was the heartbeat of a community, a small community. They really looked forward to the weekly news, and what the character wanted to do, of course, wrote about national news as well, but he really honed in on the community and giving people good news. That's what he wanted to do, to encourage. He, wanted to encourage young writers. And so I guess that is part of mine. I went with Inspiring Voices publisher, who is a division of Guidepost, who, does write the encouraging, inspirational stories. And that was important to me, to give a message, that, I think that God does give each of us an ability, and we need to pursue that. We do need to hone it. And Lauren, you expressed yourself so beautifully with, what is in each of our hearts, I'm sure. That we just have it within us and we need to finish it.
Excellent. Well, that's